Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're continuing our study of matriarchs, the women we meet in the book of Genesis, and we're continuing our talk about Sarah. After Sarah gives birth to Isaac in chapter 21, and Isaac is circumcised by his father, and Isaac gets to be a toddler because at this point he's weaned. That would take 3 to 5 years for a child to be completely weaned from his mother. At least that's what we understand about their culture at the time. And that lets us know that later on that Samuel, was not, you know, a 2-year-old whenever he's dropped off at the tabernacle. Um, so so he's more than a toddler. He's a little boy at this point. He's stopped being a toddler, and now he's a little boy. And Hagar gets angry, or excuse me, Sarah gets angry at Hagar and Ishmael, and we should have seen this coming. Uh, you know, Things changed between Sarah and Hagar when Sarah got pregnant. Sarah now has a 13, 14-year-old son, um, and or a son even older than that, and Sarah, there's tension in the home with another brother. As the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned, Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, mocking. Therefore she said to Abraham, Drive out this maid and her son, for the son of this maid shall not be an heir with my son Isaac. And the matter distressed Abraham greatly because of his son. But God said to Abraham, Don't be distressed because of the lad and your maid. Whatever Sarah tells you, you listen to her, for through Isaac your descendants shall be named. And the son of the maid I will make a nation also, because he's your descendant. So Abraham rose early in the morning, took bread and a skin of water, gave them to Hagar, putting them on her shoulder, and gave her the boy, and sent her away. And she departed and wandered about in the wilderness of Beersheba. I wonder why Abraham didn't do more for Hagar, and we'll talk more about Hagar when we finish talking about Sarah. But he doesn't want to do this. Um, he doesn't just say okay this time. When Sarah told him to sleep with Hagar, he said okay, and he did it. And when she said get rid of her, he said okay. Well, he didn't say okay, but he permitted Sarah's treatment to become so severe that Hagar runs away. Um, but he's got a son, and he's had this son into his early teen years. This is a son that he loves, that he's treated like a son for 13 years or so, and um, and he doesn't want to do this. What was Ishmael doing? I don't know. I don't know what he was doing, but it really angered. He was mocking. Was he making fun of his little brother? Was he mocking Was he mocking Sarah for breastfeeding a child at her age? I don't know what he was doing. What he did what a 14-year-old boy would do. He was a lunkhead, and it really upset Sarah, and she said, "Get rid, because he's not going to be an heir along with my son." Now, this is a real concern. Um, I used to take my college students from Pepperdine every year to the National Mosque in Washington D.C. And we went through 2 different imams there over the years. Um, and every time we would go, the imam would begin by saying, How many of you are Jews? How many of you are Christians? Well, then we are brothers because we're all people of the book. Allah gave us a book, He gave you a book, He gave you a book. Allah gave us the final book. And then he said, we are the descendants, and he would say, we are the descendants of Ishmael. Ishmael is Abraham's firstborn son. And they make a big deal out of that, as they would, of course. And Sarah gets it, you know, that Ishmael's descendants will always claim to be the firstborn and always claim to have priority. And so he needs to leave. And so Sarah does. Um, and of course, then the story becomes Hagar's story, which we'll talk about a little more later on. But I just want us to see that that she is always a woman of strength and of influence in her own home. And we've seen her submit, we've seen her have faith, but that doesn't mean she has ever allowed herself to be a doormat in her home, because she's the opposite of that. She's the absolute opposite of that. So Sarah dies in chapter 23. I want to talk about that for a minute or two, and then we'll talk about Sarah and her legacy next time. Sarah lived to be 127 years. These were the years of the life of Sarah. So she lived to be 127 years old. She was 90 when her son was born, so he's 37 when his mother dies. Sarah died in Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan, and Abraham went to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. And then that's when Abraham buys the only piece of ground he ever owns, which is the field and the burial cave of Machpelah, where they are all going to be buried, where Sarah is buried, where Isaac and Rebekah are buried, and where Jacob and Leah are buried. Um, and it's because of her death. So she gets to see her son um, grow to maturity. Um, we're not told she had any role whatsoever in the offering of Isaac. But did she know? I wonder. I wonder, did she know? And was it her act of faith as well that allowed Abraham to take him? If she knew at all, she had to show faith, because if she, we know that she gets her way in her home when she puts her foot down. Um, and so I'm assuming either she didn't know at all what Abraham went to do, or she was as faithful as he was in the moment when he was required to take Isaac to the mountains of Moriah. Okay, well, we're going to talk about her and her legacy next time. Thank you so much for joining me for 5 good minutes with the Word.